Balcones' first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. When you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Whiskey Neat, spirited conversations with interesting people. I am your host, Kristopher Hart. This week's episode, I sit down with one of my all-time favorite shows from the golden era of television, Sons of Anarchy. I sit down with Theo Rossi and Kim Coates. Both of them have started a podcast called Theo Rossi's Theory with Kim Coates. Theory. See that? Play on words. It's on YouTube. It's on all your podcasting platforms. They basically, of course, on top of being a podcast, they'll do some episodes where they'll actually review and break down episodes from the show. Theo and Kim haven't aged a day in 15 years, and they're two of my favorite characters from the show. And we just sit down and talk about the podcast. We talk about the show. We talk about my love for them. It was just a great, fantastic, totally for me episode. Check out their show on YouTube. Check it out on all your podcasting platforms, and we'll get straight into the ads. This week, for over 30 years, Signatory has been one of Scotland's premier independent bottlers, selecting the finest casks of whiskey from over 120 different distilleries. From big names you already love to your new favorites you've never seen, and even legendary closed distilleries. We call Signatory the single malt Scotch whiskey because not only do its bottles come from one distillery, but also from one distillation run and from one single cask, bottled without additives like artificial coloring and at cask strength. So when you pour your glass of Signatory, you're getting Scotch in its most authentic, most natural form. It's the closest you can get to a warehouse tasting without boarding a plane. Signatory Vintage Scotch Whiskey is bottled in Pitlochry, Scotland, and imported by Total Beverage Solution, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and must be 21 or older to purchase. Signatory is made to be enjoyed, but please, please, please do so responsibly. Without further ado, please welcome my guests, Theo Rossi and Kim Coates. Cheers. Theo, Kim, guys, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Kristopher Hart.
I have been, obviously I've been a fan for a long time, obviously, but I have been consuming theory that it's funny. So I guess it was back in June or July. It felt like, I don't know if it was due to cabin fever or what, but Theo had this cathartic, want to start a podcast, and then it just, you guys kind of crashed into each other. You've already been friends for a long time, and then now it is the show that you two do together, and it is exploding. You guys are killing it.
Yeah, we are. And I got to tell you, that's why it's like it's Theory Reaper Reviews. I use that as the Theory, moniker as my protection if Kim and I ever get divorced. But no, correct. But it is, really the Reaper Reviews is Kim was my first ever guest on the podcast. People somebody had been asking me to do a podcast for a while, and I was like, Kim and I just spoke about this recently on an episode, and I was like, I don't have any interest because ultimately, as weird as this sounds, Kim and I are character actors. You don't really want people to know who you are. You want them to know your characters. It's kind of what you do. And I did a couple of a bunch of episodes of Theory with all different people, and I realized I can't do this. This will last maybe like 2 months if I have to keep talking to people who I don't really know, or it just wasn't interesting. I knew that it would kind of die on the vine. And then I asked him, I said, hey, we both have never seen the show, Sons of Anarchy, the TV show we did together. How about we just watch it together and talk about it? And cut to, it is truly like one of the highlights of my week. We have a blast.
That's really true. And Theo, when was that you and I sat down in LA to do that first, like 2.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago?
When we did the pilot, the original pilot. Yeah. We did like a pilot for a network. Yeah. We did a pilot for a network like 2 years ago. And then I didn't do anything with it for a while, over a year. Right.
And you realized, but you realized, like you just said to Kristopher, like you were told by a bunch of people how fun you and I were in that very first podcast. And if there's something that you wanted to do, maybe it's Sons related. And like you just said, I mean, Chris, I've seen before the Reaper reviews, Kim Coates has probably seen, I don't know about you, Theo, but I've probably seen maybe 40 of the shows, 35 to 40, a little over a third, for sure. I've seen every first show, every last show of every season that we did in Sons. But there's so many I didn't see. And so when Theo and his people came up with this idea, and it's COVID, right? I mean, it's a wacky world right now. And boy, to be able to see my brother like this every week and talk about something we know so little about, other than we were in every scene of the goddamn thing every week, it's so much fun. It's just so much fun.
Well, it's amazing that Theo, I didn't know that you hadn't seen anything up to this point.
No, again, like Kim, premieres, finales, because we would go, premieres, we had to go, finales, and then I would see scenes. I would kind of check in and out. But when you're on a TV show, and they don't really do them like that anymore, 7 years, waiting every 6 months, there's times you're not working, especially in that show. I was gone like the last 4, 5, 6, 7. I was on my own thing. So I'd never seen these guys work. And then it kind of just gets too close to you. You're like, yeah. And everybody else is talking about it. And I just didn't really watch it. I just had an awkward time doing it. And now I get it. Like I say now, why it's such a giant show, why when I'm in Bulgaria filming, do I see somebody jog by me with a Reaper on their shirt? And like, why do I get it that it's gone, that it's so big? It's because it's actually quite enjoyable to watch.
It's quite good. I mean, I watched it as it was happening.
Wow, good for you, bro.
And there was this era where, not to shit on everybody, but we were stuck in this rut of these 24 episode seasons, and there was a lot of filler and chaff to kind of put advertising revenue in. And then all of a sudden around 2007, 2008, whenever it was, all these shows start generating like 12, 11 episode seasons
13,
that are just everything you want. I mean, just the meat.
We literally were on that comet drive of Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Sons of Anarchy, Game of Thrones, Mad Men. Yeah. Literally, these cable shows were starting to just, like
Golden
you said,
era.
It all started with like Oz. Oz started in HBO and people were like, oh, what's this? And then Sopranos took it to an entirely new level. And then really what happened was during that, The Wire and all that, people were like, wait a second, maybe it's not me going through 800 commercials and, the 24 and just felt a little more manufactured. This seemed more like film. And then you started getting a lot of film actors who were coming to do these things. And when you look at Sons, truly in the beginning, the genesis of it, it's all character actors.
It's perfect.
That's all it is. It's just a bunch of character actors who every time they got a job, they were fortunate to have a job and they gave their best and they stole every scene they were in. So now you got them all together. And it was like that's what all those shows did so brilliant. That's what they all have in common. And then the people broke out from those shows. So to me, it was like, I don't know if there'll ever be another time like that because shows go, 2 seasons. They're like 6 or 7 episodes now. People binge them in a weekend and they forget about them. With us, why Kim and I have traveled all over the world and everywhere for the show back in the day, and why everywhere you go, people still talk about it, is you became family with the people who watched it. They lived with you for 8 years. Every 6 months, they waited, they talked about it, then they lived with you every week. And it's just such an honor to be a part of something like that stands the test of time.
Yeah, so 2 things. I say it was perfect. It wasn't perfect, and I'll tell you why. Because I loved what they did with Tig. Yeah. In fact, every single arc, everything they did with him, from his creepiness to Venus Van Dam to shout out to Walton Goggins, everything was perfect. I hated what they did with Theo. Juice Juice was like the hardest thing to watch because you loved him so much and he just kept screwing up, and then it ended in such. As soon as I announced that you guys were going to be on the show, about 45 people asked, was Marilyn Manson a gentle lover? And
no, the answer is no.
No, he was very rough.
Yeah,
very rough on my boy Theo.
He smelled like hair dye and bad news. He just, here's the thing about Eminem, as we called him, which I guess everybody did, which was odd. Eminem was the biggest fan of Sons.
And his dad was too. Remember that?
That's father. How he got on the show. The way Marilyn got on the show was him and his dad had not spoken at all for a very long time. Their commonality was Sons of Anarchy. He reached out to Kurt and just wanted to thank Kurt. Kurt, being a fan, said, "Hey, I got something coming up in the show. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know what it'll be." The character of Tully. He gets on the show, not really an actor, and it becomes a nightmare for Juice. And that's basically the long and short story of it. And yeah, but you know what? I got to tell you, I like that everybody was so uncomfortable watching that journey of I can't wait to watch those seasons. I'm excited to see how uncomfortable it was from seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7.
And this is a good point to bring up right now, and that is that people, when this show ended, Chris, everybody around the world went, no, it could go another 5 seasons, 3 seasons, please, no. And I have to tell you something, that when Rossi and I signed on to do this show, along with the other 8 leads and then the guest stars, whatever, you don't really know where your character is going to go. You don't know, but you sign on in good faith that you're going to be on a ride of success, and you take what's given to you. And I've got to tell you something, bro, that those early years with Tig and the final years with Juice were some of the stuff that you would never have guessed would maybe have been written. But then when you were given it, it's a television show. You're an actor, and you want to fulfill to the best of your ability this guy or this woman. And we all will say today, this show was so crazily written those last 2 or 3 seasons. It went like that. It got very violent at the end. But, yeah, people are still talking about Juice's demise. Tig lived. He didn't even die. I mean, and they'll never stop talking about that.
Yeah, and that was 7 years ago. That was almost a decade ago when the show ended. And for neither one of you look the exact same age, but also just that the show still circles the zeitgeist and talks, constantly. Mm-hmm. And you're right. We lived with it. I've been with my wife. Right? I've been with my wife 15 years. We started the show together. We went through the show together. We had kids during the show.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So just going through it as a viewer, it's something that, you think back of all those special moments of watching it together. I remember to this day, which, spoiler alert, I know you guys are still watching it, but that whole storyline where Gemma thought that his what's her name, Tara thought Tara was a narc, and they have that final fight scene, and Tara gets killed. I
come in, yeah.
My wife and I mean, it haunts me. That's probably the most haunting moment in that series, next to Opie dying, which was another thing that was just so hard to watch. But man, I mean, listen, when I said I'm a fan, I couldn't be a bigger fan.
Yeah. I mean, and what's crazy is, and so amazing to hear that about your wife and kids, because you think about it, like I met my wife because of the show. Like Kim and I had gone over to, we did USO tours and went over to Iraq, and we're really kind of helping out with, many, many years back. Like we were going because we found out early in the show, I had never done anything for the military. I didn't really know a lot of people who were like my step grandfather, and I know my birth father was in. I heard but I didn't know. And Henry Rollins was like, "Hey, this is when no one was watching the show, like the first season or second, right when Henry came on. With that whole Zobel storyline." And he was doing the voice of like Wounded Warriors or something. And he was like, "By the way, the military is obsessed with your show." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "You should go do one of these tours." And cut to me, Kim, Bobby Elvis, and Chief Unser went over to Iraq and Kuwait and went over. And that was like kind of the beginning of, wow, this show might be bigger than we think it is. And, again, I think that we're also in this retromania time right now, especially during the last year. We're all kind of harking back to whatever we want to call it, simpler times or when things were a little different. We're definitely in like a hardcore retromania time. And a lot of people are going when they felt maybe the most comfortable or maybe, whatever. And there was something about the water cooler thing of Sons and many other shows like that, Breaking Bad and all that, where you would just talk about it and you would go, what's going to happen next week? And oh my God, that season just ended. What's going to happen next season? I got to wait. I can't believe it. And we just don't do that anymore. That's just not part of what we do. And, it's people so this little thing that him and I are doing, it's crazy how much joy it brings people and us at the same time. So it's kind of cool.
I perused your comment section of a few of your videos and the overwhelming amount of love at the comments on I think Theo said at one point he actually reads all of those comments.
I do.
But people love Kim's laughter.
They love his laughter.
When he starts cackling, people are like, "Oh my God!"
You gonna tell me that someday, Theo, or are you just gonna let me sit with that for weeks and months?
I can't give you any compliments because then you'll start doing things different.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
What's in the glass, by the way?
Oban from
Single
Scotland.
malt.
Yeah, little Oban. Yeah, I just got back from a gig, so I'm celebrating. It's
And you're in Canada right now, huh?
I am.
Yeah, I was talking to your publicist, and she said you're a bit of a whiskey guy yourself.
Yeah, I am, and I think Theo used to be. He decided to grow up and put some of that away. But man, I'm a Scotch guy. I'm a Bushmills guy. I like Canadian whiskey. I like bourbon. I like I'm a whiskey guy when I do drink, and it's nice on the side. There's nothing better than a little shot of whiskey.
What was that drink you drank every night? The Godfather when we were working.
Well, see, I didn't even want to bring it up, but I will, because Chris, don't hate me with what I'm about to tell you. But when I was doing the 3rd season of Sons, and I was starting to go through some emotion, a lot of emotion, I think I was going through some stuff. Some gal ran into my wife in some store and said, "Your husband, I hear he should try a Godfather." And she says, "What is that?" And she goes, "It's Scotch 2/3 with 1/3 of amaretto." And that became my go-to drink. So sorry about that, but I do sometimes splash a little amaretto with a lot of Scotch with a lot of ice, and that's really good.
No judgment here. I'm a whiskey neat guy, hence the name of the show. But I love a good cocktail. We talk about it on the show quite a bit. If we go out to a bar and something's frozen and it's got a nice little umbrella, I don't mind it. I
don't go that far, Chris. I never go that far.
I like sweets. I like sugar. You
like sugar. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about that. So I've consuming and learning so much more about you, both of you, over the past few months. Obviously, your upbringing has been pretty wild, and you seem now to be a very safe, very level-headed, no booze, no nothing.
Yeah.
Have you? Well, I don't think you were ever an alcoholic or anything, right? It was just it kind of was this weird thing that occurred. I believe my favorite book is The Alchemist. I believe in omens. I'm like, this whole thing. I wrote that down, by the way. I knew that.
Yeah. These things happen and you kind of look at them and go, am I going to recognize this or am I going to keep going and see what happens? I was just one of these people that started drinking at a super young age. Like it just became very commonplace. Like, I was drinking Cuddy Sark and it was like 14, and it was like, that's what we were doing. That's what you did. You had a day off. You just went out and drank and whatever. And cut to long story short, I stopped drinking for a role where I was playing this crystal meth addict. And I was like, oh, how long can I do this? And I was like, wow, I feel pretty good. And then I started running and I was like, I feel even better. And a couple of things occurred, that really were pointing me in the right direction. A couple of people that I spoke to, and I was like, huh. And 1 month became 6 months, and 6 months became a year, and a year became 11 years. And I think maybe throughout that, I've had like maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine, maybe a sip of champagne. I just stopped.
It's not your thing. Yeah.
It's just not my thing. And it was like, and what happened with me was that I started doing more marathons and doing all these races and started doing all this crazy stuff with my health. And I was just like, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? If I retire in the Algarve or Portugal or somewhere, who knows? But right now,
smoke a cigar, maybe. Little glass of sherry or port.
Cigar occasionally. I can't. Weed just doesn't work for me. I get too paranoid. No. So it's just.
Listen, I've known Rossi pre, then right in the middle, and now post any kind of like booze and whatnot. And I got to tell you something. The thing about you, Theo, and everyone, you go full bore. With your acting, with your life, with your beautiful marriage, with your kids, with hanging out with me. I let you hang out with me. You're very lucky.
I'm all in. I'm all in.
And so I've seen it all. And, for me, when I'm working a lot, I don't drink at all. But when I have some downtime, you bet I'll have some wine. You bet I'll have some whiskey. But I don't think about it when I wake up in the morning. And I'm telling you, not that you did either, but I'm telling you, you're in a really good place now, bro. And I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thanks, brother. Yeah, you know what it was? It was also I think that it was a part of the lifestyle. Like what I didn't get from me was just kind of like a thing. Like I was this artist who, you got a day off. Oh, you're not filming? Let's go. And then I was like, well, how about instead of let's go, how about maybe I go, let's go run? Or how about I go, let's go create something or produce something or, do this with a business. So I just started redirecting.
And if you can imagine, Chris, the show that we're talking about, I know we'll move on, but this SOA phenomenon, which was so part of Theo's and mine life, think about the lifestyle. Think about what we would do. Think about the cigarettes we smoked on stage. Think about the pot that wasn't really pot. Think about late nights and sometimes maybe. Yeah, that's right. Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
But think about the lifestyle. And when you're in it, like he and I were in it, sometimes it was easy to grab a beer. And then you start realizing, wait a minute, why am I not jogging? Why am I let's calm down a little bit, put the smokes away, see that fatigue, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. I always find it fascinating, whether it's from a religious perspective or from a kind of an awakening, which I know you and I both are. I am a huge Kristopher Ryan fan. And when I found out that he did your show and then you did his show, those were two of my favorite episodes to listen to. But a lot of times
you got to read his book.
Yeah, I know.
It's so good. I read it. I finished it yesterday and started it 2 days before that. It was so good.
You couldn't put it down.
I couldn't put it down. And I find it interesting because I'm a very, I say conservative, but I mean, I'm a very straight edge kind of guy. Like I have a wife, we've been together 15 years. I wasn't married before. We have 4 kids. I'm a very normal dad. Right. And his books like to tackle the subject of monogamy and sexual identity.
Yeah, sex at dawn. Yeah.
Yeah. And the books are coming from a background that I have. His books are just fun as a thought experiment, just to think through everything and question everything you've ever thought about relationships and civilization. And I mean, the books are fantastic. So
Civilized to Death, Kim. You could even listen to it on audio if you're just chilling one time. Is the book that really
copy that
interesting. Yeah, but you know what it is also as well. What I've always been so intrigued by in this life is change. People who, do something wildly different. Kim touched on something that was meaning that they just change things. They're consistent in their personality and who they are, but they're constantly changing and trying new things because, we all know the truth, right? We're not going to be here that long. So it's kind of like you got to do what you got to do and you got to do what makes you happy. But to harken back to those days, we were a bunch of character actors. Character actors, most of the time, the good ones, get pretty deep into their characters, right? That's kind of the deal. They're not, usually half-assing it because they have to. That's why they steal every scene. Like I said earlier, that's why they're doing what they do. We were hanging out every single day. We were on our bikes every day together when we weren't filming. We were at bars every day together when we weren't filming. And it started to almost art imitates life, life imitates art. We started being like that. And it was for a second you had to
becoming
check yourself
Sam Crow.
Yeah. You had to check yourself and be like, what's going on here? What are we doing? And I think it was that moment, especially when we hit that season 3 after Katie won the Golden Globe. And it started. We would be at these entertainment parties, and we would walk in together. And some of these guys are 6'5", Opie, Piney, and 6'4". Like, we come in, and you got Happy, and we're coming in on our bikes. And the rest of all these other actors at these parties and all these producers be like, what the fuck is going on here? Excuse my language. What is going on? Like, who are these? Like, they thought it almost was like, okay. And they just wanted to be with us because it was just different. And I know a lot of guys from The Sopranos, and they went through a very similar thing, and that's what happens when you're together for that many years and you're on something that is that all encompassing. So,
and you're lucky enough to get along with one another and love one another and be like brothers with one another. We were very lucky from the get-go. A great show like that doesn't mean, like, yes, the acting and the writing, but then you have to edit it, and then you put music, and then you have to sell it and direct it. And if you get lucky early and people get hooked and you have a chance to do that, and our show is so different than anything that was on TV before. There's never been a Hells Angels type club bike show on television ever before like that. So we were at the right time at the right place, and I guess we did an okay job because
with the right people.
Yeah,
the right people.
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys have talked about the original pilot was shot with a lot of the iconic characters were different people altogether.
Tig wasn't in it,
and what the end result is infinitely better than anything I could have imagined. I mean, it does seem like what the actual end result was, what it became, was just awesome. I mean, I remember I've always liked cigars. I've always been a cigar fan, but seeing Ron Perlman smoke a cigar, it's
a whole other level.
It's all of a sudden I'm smoking 3 or 4 in one sitting. Like I'm trying to bulk up a little bit. There was this drive and this inspiration for wanting to be cooler. Right, everything seemed cooler. It still is one of the greatest shows ever on the screen. And you've talked, Theo, in the past about how at one point you kind of learned, and Chris mentions that there's some sadness to this, that you guys do bond on set, but a lot of times that's where it ends. At the end of the day, you move on and you realize you're not really as close to these people as you thought you were, but it didn't seem to be that way with y'all. And of course, all these years later, you two are both
of us.
Super close. And of course, everyone is, right?
Yeah.
It's something that I feel the exact same way. I didn't have a father growing up either, so we're in a similar situation there. But I didn't realize it until as an adult that I really do kind of feel sad at the idea of knowing someone and then eventually the thought of them not actually being a part of your life. And when that show ended, it did feel, as a viewer, I'm sure as actors, there was a sadness to that, because what if y'all didn't keep in touch? You get busy doing other projects.
Yeah, Kim knows this and could speak on this more than anything. 99.99% of the projects you do, and especially as you get deeper into the game and the tenure goes longer, in this job, you know what it is. You kind of meet somebody, you have fun, you're there between action and cut. It's, hey, how are you? How's your family? You get to know them a little, and then it's like, say la vie. See you later. I might run into you somewhere. It is what it is. And then there's a few people throughout the journey. Kim has, Eric Bana, Fichtner, me. There's people throughout that you get close to. Me, it's like Thomas Jones from Cage and, all my guys from Sons and a few other people, showrunners, producers, that you kind of become, they're just the one. But you're talking 3 or 4. I'm in a 20-year career. Kim's in, year 76 of his
4 decades.
Exactly.
Yeah, 4 decades.
I look very good for 106 years old. Yes. No, that's true. That's very true, Theo. And if I may, Chris, basically being any kind of an actor and you start getting work and then more work and more work, you do think that you're going to become best friends with Bruce Willis. You're going to become best friends with Kevin Costner. They're 2 of my pals. I'm not just throwing names out. But then you don't
strong name drops. Let me pick those names up for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pick those names up.
I just threw them down hard, and then you realize you're lucky if you talk to them on the phone every 2 years. You just move on. But Sons of Anarchy was one of those times where, I can honestly say there's 7 or 8 friendships in that show that no matter how many months or years may go by and it doesn't, we will pick up exactly where we said goodbye in 2014 because we were too close for too long. And then life moves on with your kids, your life, you're traveling. Now we got COVID to deal with. I mean, things just move on, but the real true bonds like Rossi and I have, they'll never go away.
Well, speaking of which, I'm going to ask you a stupid question that I don't know if you might have gotten before, but your decade or your career does span 4 decades. How has Hollywood changed from 1986 to now? Like, has it gotten easier? Has it gotten? I mean, like you said, I know this is going to be the cheesiest question I ask, by the way, but I was looking back at your career, and I just thought, Jesus Christ, like. One, you don't realize how old you are. like I have no clue. And I was like, dude, he's in his 60s. Holy shit.
Wow.
It's yeah.
62, Theo. 62 years old, baby.
Shit.
Yeah.
We're in our 20s.
Isn't that surprising? And I mean, you look great. You look like you've always been about 45.
This is the truth. That when I started this career, from all my stage, the early Canadian, youngest Macbeth ever, 1986. John Neville directed me. New York saw me. I went to New York. I'm on Streetcar Named Desire. Stanley Kowalski took over for Aidan Quinn. Went Dracula in Atlanta, Lelios and Dangereux in Louisville, Kentucky. All these incredible theater. And then when Hollywood discovered me with The Last Boy Scout, I thought, this is before Theo was even born, I thought in the early 90s that it was all about film and stage. I would do the odd guest star on TV. You bet I would. I'd do an odd arc. You bet I would. But to discover the power of being a regular on a TV show, a successful TV show, in 2008 and 2009 with Sons, I became, you're the guy from Black Hawk Down. You're the guy, The Client. Or you're the guy in Waterworld. I became, you're Kim Coates. Sons of Anarchy and the power of really well-written television shows. And as a star, like Theo was, like the 10 of us leads, it changed my entire perspective of what it's like to be in someone's living room, bedroom, kitchen, people downrange over in Iraq watching it live that was fed into them every week. I had no idea of the power of really good television. And that's why so many actors have gone to TV now. Because the writing is sometimes just completely off the charts. And it's still about character too, right? So that's the biggest thing I've learned is to not be afraid of television. And I'm so glad I signed on for Sons. It was a really lucky thing for me. And I'll never forget it.
Hey, everybody. I want to take a quick moment, take a pause in the show and talk to you a little bit about Waterford Irish Single Malt Whiskey. This is an exceptional, different farm to glass, grain to glass, single farm, single origin Irish whiskey that sets itself apart and does everything it can to prove that terroir in whiskey is a real thing. You can check it out at glassrev.com/Waterford today. Cheers. So, not to name drop as well, but
please do, Chris.
Sir William H. Macy said the exact same thing. I don't know if it was on camera, but he had mentioned it was so crazy. There was a moment in time where Hollywood thought that if you were on TV from film,
wow, there you go,
big screen to small screen, that your career was in the shitter.
Yep.
There you go.
William said that if I had known, Shameless, he's been doing it 11 years.
Yep.
Correct.
He said if I had any idea the golden era of television has changed everything.
Everything. And you have to understand, shout out Bill Macy, my old neighbor.
Billy, no
where
shit.
I lived up in the Hollywood Hills when I used to live in that LA place. I used to see him jogging all the time. And he had just, started Shameless. That is right around that time. For me, all I knew was TV. I started as an extra, I was doing guest stars, co-star. I didn't know I wasn't a film guy, at all. I was only TV because that was my only way in. I couldn't do anything else, right? I was always the guy across from the table where they're like, did you do this? And I'm like, I didn't do it. Did you do it? I did it. And it was always, I was that guy. Every episode, I was that
it wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't
yes,
me.
I did that.
Yeah, I did it. Just let me go. It was me every time, every show. There were times when I was on 2 in a night. I remember I was on like Bones and Without a Trace, same time, same night, doing the same thing. I was on the other side of the table as the guy who did something wrong. And that was about the time I truly believe Gandolfini and Sopranos changed that, because he was a character actor. True
Agreed.
Romance he was amazing in. And then he comes and here's this guy who no one would, what are you going to do with him in movies? He was just doing the Get Shorties and doing these cool, always stealing every scene he's in. And then he comes and it's the biggest show on the planet. And everybody goes, wait a second. And then he's making the most money on the planet. And then he's, and everybody goes, well, wait a second. Why am I grinding it out on these films to do, and you're in one place, you're working 6 months a year. That's the goal of an actor. And it changed everything. And I think since then people are running to TV and honestly kind of running away from film, because the only,
especially
now. And what is Netflix in almost every country? Right. So it's like,
it has to be.
Almost. I think there's maybe 2 or 3.
North Korea might be a little sketch, but yeah,
that's
everywhere
we know
else.
It's not there, right?
They're zapping it in there somehow.
Yeah, they might be zapping it in, but it's like they're everywhere. So you're instantly, if you're on a big show, kind of a global star. The thing is that the attention span is just less. So to have those careers, that bygone era, like I always say, Leo DiCaprio is kind of the last movie star. That's really where he's on the cover of that book. It's over after that. That you would go to a film, you're going to go that weekend opening just for one person. I just don't think that is. But TV, they'll check in and they'll come. And I just think that the whole game changed around 08, earlier with Sopranos, whenever that was, 01, 02.
Sopranos were late 90s, bro. They were late 90s. Yeah.
When they first started, they were the game. I mean, I know that the more people want to attribute to The Wire, I think, but The Sopranos to me was the beginning, the real beginning, the one that got the most eyes, got the most attention. Of course, it floundered and ended like a pile of shit, but it was a great show that changed a lot,
But the difference with Sopranos and The Wire, because The Wire is one of my favorite TV shows ever, and Oz and a lot of other shows, was Jim was the movie star. He was the star. He was the Brando of that. You know what I mean? And a lot of other shows were ensembles, whatever. It was like kind of how Jax was the movie star of our show. And they like, even though it was this incredible ensemble, there's this one person that's the poster. It's this one person that is really the whole thing, the movie star technically of it. And again, you didn't see many movie stars that look like Jim Gandolfini, and just like, and that's why I love character actors. I love the Philip Seymour Hoffmans, the Bill Macy's, the people like, Kim and Fichtner and all the people we're talking about, because they're the most interesting people to watch.
And they've always been kind of the, when I was young, I waited tables at Papado's here in Houston, and we would put a piece of kale and a lemon on the side of the dish for every dish. And then eventually people actually started eating kale.
You were hoping to give it away, and now they're addicted.
So, I mean, you're absolutely right. The show was a show of character actors that everyone loved and have seen in a million other things, but never quite could remember their names, maybe sometimes.
That's right.
And,
that's the greatest compliment.
And I hope that it's a compliment. It sucks because yes, you're right. Leonardo DiCaprio is this massive star, but there are people, there's often memes that go around the internet of just literally, here's 20 people you see in everything, but you don't know their names, right? And Bill Fichtner's on there. I mean, he's this insanely talented actor. By the way, I saw Coldbrook.
Good for you. What a nice film, eh? What a nice little film, right?
Let me blow smoke up your ass for a minute here.
Yeah.
So, Coldbrook, small. Would you say it's an indie film necessarily?
Of course.
Yeah. So
$1.4 million budget. You bet it's an indie film.
My wife loves period pieces, but I can't quite buy into a period piece unless there's some sort of supernatural aspect, right? Like if Harry Potter had no magic, I wouldn't watch it. I love a film that you didn't know about or maybe didn't catch your eye. You go and you find it, and it's got this fantastical story. Plus, I already knew that you two have been best friends, close friends since Black Hawk Down. The film was fantastic. I love the film. I'm hoping, and I don't know, and I know he said that this is the most proudest piece of work he's ever done.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to do anything more like that together? Because I would love the idea of the buddy. You guys are in a lot of things together.
Fichtner and I, as Theo and I, are looking for stuff with each other all the time. But you realize how tough it is to write a movie like that, to finally produce a movie like that, to finally star in a movie like that. They had to wait till I was done Sons of Anarchy. It had to be a summer film. We always filmed in the summertime. We finally raised all this money from some Canadian investors and help from Buffalo as well. You finally shoot it, then you got to edit it. It took 2 years of Fichtner's life, for sure. Like 2 years. It's a lot of work for such a piece that meant so much to he and I to finally work together on two parts that we would never be cast as. You understand that Katie Seagal is not playing Gemma ever, if it's not that she's married to Kurt Sutter. She knocked it right out of the park, right? Billy and I.
My truck is named after her.
There you go.
My first new car purchase is a black Dodge Ram. Her name is Gemma.
We'll have to tell Katie that. That'll make her day. Very nice. Anyway,
no one could have done a better job.
Yeah. And so that's why Bill and I wanted to write not tough guys, not guys with guns, not guys with cheekbones and blue eyes. They're a couple of custodian janitors, electrical engineers from a college with kids in a small town. And it's about doing the right thing. It's about something happens in that small town. Are you going to do the right thing or not? And Harold Perrineau, right? I mean, he played Pope on Sons of Anarchy. I mean, we hated each other. Thanks. I mean, and great knowledge, great in everything. Harold's just so good. We gave him the script, and please come and make it for a nickel and a half and dime and a half. And he said, absolutely, I'll do anything with you, Coatsy. Anything with you, Bill. I mean, so when you get really good people like that on a well-written, small budget, wing and a prayer, and then it wins all those awards at some film festivals, it's a very nice thing at the end of the day that you want to do it again. And Theo, you've done the same thing with Bad Hurt.
I mean, it's all I do. I just did 2 in a row. I mean, you get a chance to do some things that people aren't going to do, and you get to try some things. And I got in this racket to take risks. If I'm not completely nervous, if I'm not worried that I'm bad at it, if I'm not doing stuff that scares the shit out of me, I'm not going to do this anymore. So with independent films, I get to do that. The last 2 I just did, and the one I have coming out in January, and all this, I mean, these are, sometimes, like we always say, you play guys that, you play these characters that no one wants to play, or you're doing things that no one wants to do. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in big, studio films. It's just less likely. Like we said, a lot of things are a little more sanitized. So for me, independent films, you just talked about Bill Macy. I mean, you're talking about the master of them. This is the way that you're going to get to play these characters that you really got in this for. Create a character, a true character. So I love them. That's what I love doing.
Well, let's talk about your move to Austin for a second. Yeah. So you were ahead of the curve, huh? Like I know everyone's talking about Rogan.
Maybe not nearly as early as I should have been. I mean, we're about to move into a ranch here, and we're pretty excited about that. Pretty wild. I grew up in New York City, right? I moved to LA. I was there for 15 years. And then once I knew Sons was ending, I was going to go do Luke Cage, a few movies in between, but I knew that I was going to be in Brooklyn doing Cage. So I moved back to New York. I was like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I get to move back where I grew up. I hadn't been here in 15 years. It just wasn't the place I grew up in. So, and then also, I hate to sound whatever, the cold weather is absolutely brutal. I was like, what is going on here? Who does this? I'm
from Saskatchewan. I can't even spell cold anymore. I've had it. I mean, my blood has changed from LA so much. It's ridiculous.
But I knew, once we had our first kid, like my wife was like, I think we got to go somewhere else. So I was like, I just wasn't ready to go back to LA. It wasn't for me at the moment. Even though everyone I knew was there in New York. My wife's from Houston, H-Town, which obviously you know very well. And she said she lived in Austin when we met. She was living in Austin. I plucked her out of here and I took her to LA to do the last season of Sons. And then, she came to New York, and everybody who's from Texas is trying to get back to Texas. And now I understand why. So we came here on a Valentine's Day weekend, and the first thing I said to her, I said, babe, I'm never going to live in Texas. It's not going to happen. We came here with less than 24 hours that I was here, however many years ago it is now. I went, yep, this is where I want to live immediately.
Yeah, it's not only is it no state income tax and all the great things that people love about Texas, but we were looking at land not too long ago in West Texas, 100 acres for $50,000.
Yep.
like there's so much land in this state for such an insane price that you could build whatever you want.
Whatever.
And so, yeah, it has been nice. I mean, we were talking a little bit about Brendan Shaw before we started recording, but his whole crew, they've all come to Texas, and I think there's a little bit of I was born and raised here. I don't have an accent. I think there's a stereotype of a lot of people from Texas, but I spent a year in San Antonio, and to this day, my wife and I constantly talk about getting out of Houston. We love Houston, but it's just so hot and humid, and every year there's some life-ending apocalyptic flood. Yeah. But we would never leave. We would never leave. My parents went through that. Yeah. Yeah, we would never leave Texas. We would go Austin. We'd go to Dallas. We'd go somewhere up north. But well, it's awesome. Yeah, ahead of the curve for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I cannot say enough good things. It is truly an incredible place. It's an incredible run state, and it's an incredible place. And again, I was one of those people that my misconceptions were through the roof, and I've covered every part. I just drove to LA and back with the family. I've been to the Rio Grande and did everything in between. It's a pretty amazing place. So I'm really happy we're here.
And Kim, you live in both LA and Canada, correct?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've got, I guess, 3 places. I've got a place in Toronto, I got a place in British Columbia, and I got a place in LA. And, when the world changed in that whole March, April of this year, I just finished a big gig over in Slovakia, Van Helsing. I came in to help them out for the first 3 shows of the final season. And we go back to Transylvania, man. I mean, we go back to Transylvania. And, I'm the lead in this thing, and I actually play a good guy. I'm Count Dalibor, and Dracula gets involved. It was fun shit. But then all of a sudden the world changes, and my driver's pounding on my Winnebago door going, Kim, I don't want to let you scare you, but they're thinking of closing the Vienna airport down in 5 days. So I pulled the producers into my trailer, and I said, we got to wrap this thing up. We can't be stuck here, so we can't get back to LA or Vancouver. And we did. We wrapped it 2 days early. Got it all in, overtime like crazy, got home, world changes. And I'm really lucky to be Canadian and proud, and I'm American proud too. But I've been in Canada hiding out, man. And it's a great place to hide out in these crazy times that the world's going through. And I think about all my buddies in LA. I think about Theo. I think about everybody, all my pals in the States and what they're going through. And I wish them well every day. Canada's going through its own crap show as well. We just don't have as many people, and we seem to be doing it a little bit better than much of America is right now. So you know what? I hope 2021 brings just such better things for all of us, right, Chris? I mean, that's the truth.
It's a weird time. But let's get back to theory for a minute.
Sure.
You guys made the conscious decision, and this is something that you get kind of hit up with about quite a bit. I don't know if that sentence made sense, but I'll just pretend it did. You guys have made the decision to review the show out of order.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think you've explained it a little bit. I know for sure on one episode, but my question is, in what order do you decide to, why, so I get that you don't feel. Okay. So you just pick an episode.
Let me take this, please. Let me take this.
Kim.
So when Rossi comes to me June, early July of this year with this concept, this idea, I let him go. I mean, you can't hold Theo back anyway when he starts talking. It's all, go, bro. And he started talking. We're going to do this, maybe do this. And he goes, what do you think about, we don't even do them in order. And I remember sitting back in my chair. If I was a smoker, I would have lit a smoke. If I had a drink, I would have had a sip. Because I realized first, and I went to him, why? And he went, why not? We haven't seen half of them anyway. Why don't we just change it up? And do you know what, bro? Well, Theo, you can take over from now, but yeah. I think it was so much fun for us because we really knew nothing. I mean, we knew everything. We've read every script. We're in every script, But to actually do the 4th show from season 2 before we did one, you have to just try and remember
I think the most
shit.
endearing, yeah, I think the most endearing part of it was everything's a happy accident.
Yeah.
Kim and I at first, when we started this, we wanted to do an episode that we both enjoyed and that we had a momentous scene together and that we talk about a lot, which was the patch over episode from season 1 with the dog, the Doberman bite
me in the ass.
And that was the patch over episode. So we said, let's do that. And I believe that was episode 3 of season 1. And then we said, what should we do next? And this was when we were still on, we're only going to do these a little. I'm going to still go back and do all these people I have scheduled for the show. And then I would start pushing people and we go, oh, let's do the next one where Tig does whatever, takes the mushrooms and does this and does that. Let's do that one because that's something fun to talk about for the people. And then it started to, you know what? I don't really want to do these other things with these people because I'm struggling unless it's on like prison reform or a book that I love, like you just said with Dr. Ryan, with Dr. Ryan or someone else. I don't really want to do this anymore. It's like pulling teeth. So now what are we going to do? We just did 4 episodes out of order. Let's just continue it.
And we kept going that way.
But the rule is we're going to stay within seasons 1 to 3. We look at them as blocks. Season 1, 2, and 3 is a block. Season 4, 5, 6 is a block. And season 7 is its own block. So we're going to do seasons 1 to 3. And we're going to usually do 2 in a row within the same season, potentially in order. And that's kind of the rhythm we've been going. Now we're actually on this strange rhythm where we're just going to finish out season 3. We've done, we started with season 3, episode 7, and now we just did 8. We're doing 9, and we're going to go right to the end because we've already done the finale. We are discussing when we move into that second block of season 4, 5, 6 of doing it in order. But the one thing I want to say, it is quite endearing that we don't know anything. Like we really don't know anything. So when we're like, what happened here? Who is that? I can't tell you 90% of the comments of people.
Not a clue.
Like, you're an idiot. This was already.
I know what chair didn't work. I know how my bike was running. I know who got fucked up on a bike ride. I know what Katie said at a certain point while she was licking ice cream. But when it comes to why did the Irish do this? Those people have watched all 7 seasons 100 times. They know how to say everything. They know every line and we find that fascinating because we're just knuckleheads and we're finding out as we go. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
That's why our motto is who cares? Who cares?
Well, it's something that's not bothered me. Like I'm with you 100%. I've enjoyed it. And I didn't even really wonder like, why is it not in order? But But then once you started addressing it, I started thinking about it. So I have an idea, a suggestion for the channel.
Sure. Let's bring it.
When you let's say you kill all of season 1, right? I know it's blocked, but let's say you knock out season 1. It's only 11, 13 episodes, 1 of the 2. Mm-hmm. In your YouTube channel, have a playlist titled season 1 and then place them in order.
We're trying. YouTube, the algorithm won't let us.
Okay, because on our YouTube channel, we started adding the playlist of popular episodes, and I'm not even sure on what. I think there's a way you can move them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're trying. I got my guy Justin. Big shouts to Justin Tordella. He's trying. I have them right now in season 1, 2, 3,
awesome.
And I'm trying to get them in order. And then we're going to figure it out some way, even if we have to put it on the website, even if we have to figure out something where you can just now go. And what we also just implemented, because we're complete morons, is now at the end of every episode, we go, hey, this is what we're doing next week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because we realized we were just popping them on people and being like, so we have a couple of these fan groups that have been amplifying it and telling people, and now
amplifying
we're doing
it. It's its own show now. I mean,
it's its own show.
The show before the show. They're watching it. Hundreds of thousands are watching it before just get caught up, and they've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, we nicknamed everybody.
Samly,
we have our Samly, our Sam Fam, and we do the merch.
Pro.
And it is just, I got to tell you, the greatest part about it is seeing
Sam
people's
Fam.
enjoyment. The Sam Fam. We see their enjoyment, and The other thing that I'm also trying to do, because Kim and I have done this forever, is I mentor a few young actors and people that are in the business and other, even writers and other, young directors. It's like, we also try to not just do this as a review show and also two brothers talking about life occasionally, but, for the first 15 minutes, what we also try to do is kind of sprinkle in some things of like, hey, we're two people that, came up in this, not necessarily the easiest way. Don't let this fool you and all the other stuff we've done after and before it. This is some things to do with acting and in scenes and things like that. So it's kind of encompasses a little of everything that we're doing in it. And that's what I think makes it so different, because I've listened to a bunch of review shows. And the truth is, most people sound like they don't even want to be there. And they're just doing it. And they're like, and then in this scene, and it's like, okay, but we're actually our love of experiencing this for the first time is kind of what makes it so different, I believe.
It's very endearing. And I'll tell you, so I didn't know until just now that you hadn't already seen the show. I've been along this journey with you in that I'm listening out of order, right? Because you're jumping around. And the passion, the excitement, the little nuance of like, why was this guy sitting in my chair that was someone who screwed up, or the sign that said actual Sam Crow versus, so I'm along the ride as it's happening. But what I'm interested, once I started thinking about it, is it would be fun to go back once you've done, 100 episodes in, you've knocked out seasons 1 through 3 out of order, to go back and listen in order to see the commentary, because each episode is going to be with a new, fresh mind, because it wasn't listened to in order. Right? Or it wasn't reviewed in order.
Yeah.
Chris, if you think I'm going to have any kind of time to do that, you're drinking too much Scotch whiskey right now. That's just not going to happen. But
Canadian whiskey.
Thank you for that piece of
advice. What's a good Canadian whiskey? I don't want to jump.
Well, believe it or not, Canadian whiskey for a long time was kind of shit. It was perceived. Let me be fair here, because Ireland's been in the same boat.
No, I totally agree. It's changing, though.
It's changing. Yes, it's changing. So for a long time, Theo, our drinking culture for decades was to get drunk. It was the purpose was to let's cut it all down to 80 proof. Let's mix it with soda. Let's get to a point. Yep. That's changing by and large globally. More brands are doing higher proof options, less watered down, less adulterated. Canada is going through Ireland, and France, Cognac and Armagnac were largely just 80 proof spirits that were maximized. Like, you make more money when you cut it all the way down with water, just like you do with drugs. You cut drugs down and you capitalize on it. But for some reason, I don't know what inspired it, but over the last 10 years, Canada, Ireland, Armagnac, Cognac, all of these things are still like, let's just give it straight from the barrel. Let's give you full flavor, less water.
Yeah, that wasn't the thing back then. It was drink packed, right?
Canada's killing it right now.
Yeah, that's why you had to cut it. I remember me, it was like whiskey was just like, oh, this will get us drunker faster.
You said Cuddy Sark, and I knew exactly what you were.
And Jameson, and like, but whatever. I'm not saying that they were bad. It was just, but to us, it was like Johnny Blue. Like, if someone had a Johnny Blue, you were like, whoa, this person's really rich, and I'm going to enjoy this, right? And that culture of, because we have a lot of friends that own bars and stuff like that, that kind of like, enjoying it and the taste of it. I guess whiskey is at the front of that line, right? I know tequila is making a move now, but whiskey is the one, right? Where people are pretty stingy on what they want.
Everybody thinks they're at the front of the line. If you're tequila, you think, if you're vodka, you think gin over in England.
Well, whiskey's the old school one. But
whiskey has made such a incredible sipping, little bit of ice if you're lucky, spending a little bit more money, because what you're tasting, not guzzling and drowning with Coca-Cola or soda water, is just the liquor. And if you're not an idiot and you can start to appreciate, which Canada finally figured out, that, you know what, those days of VO and 7, those Ryan Coke, like in the bar, how about Crown Royal make better whiskey? How about Wiser's come to the front of the line and make better whiskey? People are now drinking it, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's exploded. It's doing very well here, and I'm kind of excited. I know, Theo, you don't currently drink, but the Texas Whiskey Trail is the only other whiskey trail next to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail.
Wow, amazing!
that's exploding right now. And
My wife will drink all the whiskey.
There are a lot of great distilleries in Waco. There's a lot of great ones.
Yeah, she goes there all the time.
Out of Austin, and the experience of just spending the afternoon in a rick house and pulling barrels out and just tasting things. It's one of the most funs that you can. I mean, you spend all morning sipping and tasting from barrel to barrel, and it's going through the era that Sons of Anarchy went through in the late 2010s is what whiskey's going through now. It's like the golden era of spirits.
Yeah, amazing.
So things are going well. Listen, I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time. I did have a couple more things I wanted to ask you. I know you're a Paul Newman fan.
We both are.
Do you have any semblance? You gotta, because The Color of Money inspired me to play pool. I was gonna ask you, can you play a good game of billiards? Are you a billiards guy at all? Or I'm trying to figure out, I know that the watch thing inspired you. Paul Newman's watch game has inspired you, and you love a good watch. What other things has Paul Newman inspired that you've
His charity. His charity work is unparalleled. I mean, he literally, the whole story of Newman's Own. And I know Kim, we talk about it all the time. I mean, Paul Newman is the rare of the rare. You know what I mean? He did stuff that's Fichtner worked with him. I mean, it's crazy. It's like he's the rare of the rare. And I think that his charity work of what he did with Newman's Own, the agreement to put his face on and to give all the money to charity, the Hole in the Wall gang and all that stuff, what he did in this business, what he represented, family. He also used to tell people that you got me between action and cut, and that's it. And then I'm home to Joanne and the kids in Connecticut.
And watching racing and thinking about his charities. I mean,
that's it. He's truly the example. I always say, be the example. He's the example. Biggest movie star in the world forever. The example. Right? Kim, you got it.
Yeah, he was the Jack Nicholson before Jack Nicholson.
He was Paul Newman. I mean, Brando was Brando. People were like, Gene Hackman was Gene Hackman. Paul Newman was
Hackman, man.
Yeah, come on. We all, and for me, and I'm older than Theo, and I'm older than you. I mean, in those 70s, in the decade of the 70s, those movies in the 70s, I'll argue with anybody that was the decade of movies and movie stars and art and not big action stuff. And I don't want to be a hypocrite because I'm in big action stuff too. But honest to God, those movie stars back then, and Paul Newman, Bill Fichtner did work with Paul. And he was just the kindest. When the day was over, he went right back to his house. They were in Maine shooting. Billy got invited to watch a NASCAR race. He brought a piece of pie or a pie, and Newman loved the pie. And they sat there and watched the whole race, didn't talk much, but had the greatest afternoon. And Billy kept thinking to himself, I'm sitting with Paul Newman at his house, talking racing. I mean, there's nothing better than that, really.
Well, listen, I appreciate both of your guys' time. Is there any hope? I know there's been a little crossover with the Mayans. Is there any hope of another spinoff of something that we might see another semblance of? Obviously, Theo is long gone. He suffered a dreadful fate. But is there any hope that we might see Tig in the future?
I don't know, bro. I'm just so glad that I said yes to doing those first 7 seasons. I'm so glad we all left it on the floor with that show. And now the Mayans is taken off, and I'm happy for them. I haven't watched the show. I don't watch anything. But I don't even think about that. But, Sutter, I don't know. I don't know if there'll be a prequel or the first 9 or who knows. There's all kinds of stuff being floated around. In the meantime, I'm doing a podcast with Theo Rossi once a week, kind of rehashing
theory,
what we did do,
Reaper reviews.
And it's Reaper reviews, and God, it's just a lot of fun.
Double R, yeah,
a lot of fun.
Well, listen, thanks so much for your time today, guys. We'll let you go.
I appreciate you.
Stay safe, man.
I'm just so happy you guys showed up today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Cheers, brother.
See you, buddy.
Talk to you soon, guys.
Family. Love you, Theo.
Yeah. Cheers.
See you guys.
Love you guys.
Cheers.
Later.
Balcone's first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. when you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.